So on the subject, basically, of MPs, like, things that MPs are doing wrong and breaching the privilege, not us, who are just advertising campaigns and pushing the boundaries. We're talking about MPs who have not only pushed the boundaries, but gone way over the boundaries and even perverted it and tried to mislead us due to just modern culture. Now, you might say, well, our ancient customs, and now these are modern customs that we've got now. These are like the modern customs. Everyone goes on social media, right? Well, the thing is that the principle for the rules of members of parliament or even people serving in government, it's a very clear and very straightforward principle of the government itself as a body paid for by the public, right, is not allowed to influence its own election, rather than independent candidates are only allowed to influence their own election, and it's all controlled and funded, right? Now, the subject of influence, what is and isn't an influence, it only takes knowledge and intelligence. Now, the thing is that there are different people with different levels of awareness and intelligence. Firstly, there's people think, oh, people should be able to do this or should be able to be that. That's down to opinion, right? When it comes down to it, the question is, does this influence or not? Or does that influence or not? And is it of this nature or not? Right? And that's with this. Now, Reese Mogg was on GB News presenting. I don't know if he still is or not. I don't even care, to be honest. But I care about that he's broke the law. Now, Ofcom said that he broke their rules, right? Ofcom have been put in place and been given policies and set up by the government, right? In the similar way the police have, but the police can't find Madeleine McCann. The police don't know how to find Madeleine McCann. It's beyond their capacity. Or any other person who goes missing, and they can't solve the crime, right? They can't, they're not competent enough to do it. It's beyond their equipment and their intelligences to do that, right? Now, the thing with this MP's election propaganda and so forth, and the rules for it, is that there are some philosophical people who have a wider understanding generally of the effects of things. Whenever they do anything or say anything, like the effects that it has on other people or the repercussions or the effects, right? And some people can see the effects of anything that anyone does or says, how far do these effects spread? They're in the constant awareness that, when their family's watching TV and TV shows are saying this or saying that or putting adverts out, or the influence it has on their family members. And this is why the government try and regulate all these adverts, like some of them got to be over a certain age. They got the Advertising Standards Authority. All these things, right? Now, when MPs are on there, they're not meant to be influencing our election or giving you anything, right? Now, there are some laws for election propaganda in the Representation of the People Act, and then there's some other laws which now have come into effect because there's a lot of overseas assistance, overseas help from YouTube and Facebook headquarters, because they're not English, they're abroad. And you can tell when it's an overseas assistance or help when they don't really have a proper complaints place in your own country. That means that, right, it's very difficult for me to go in and see Mark Zuckerberg in person and complain to him because he's not in my country. And I can't speak to anyone at Facebook. All I can do is submit these reports, and they go to some minions somewhere, right? And they're just like little fleas that they flick, and they're just unimportant, and they add to their random statistics. I can't actually speak to someone face to face and have a intelligent conversation in detail, back and forth in front of a real person about their platform and their laws and their policies and their rules and things like that, right? They're not even in this country. Now, Resistance GB was saying that if it wants to be acknowledged as a proper news programme and have its privileges for interviewing and entering, reporting on site places, it's got to be a proper registered news place, apparently with a proper registered address, right? Now, YouTube and Facebook aren't really proper registered places with addresses in England. I mean, they've got a makeshift office in London, but they were just using that for like people to go in and mess around on games. Google have got some offices in England. They've got several spread around, but they're all for different things. It's not properly Google headquarters. They've got offices here, but the main people who are running it aren't really here. The people properly in charge, right? And I really doubt if you go to those places, it is like a proper kind of place where you can go speak to them about things, although they're all in London. Maybe you can go in there, but it's not the headquarters anyway. Let's say that, right? Now, these platforms, YouTube and Google, YouTube, and Facebook, they're not even in England. So they're running these TV shows on them. It's not ITV, and it's definitely not Channel 4, and it's not the BBC headquarters in London, right? So that's one thing. But yet, Mogg was being put out on GB News. It's a company that hasn't really got a proper headquarters in England. I mean, I think that Twitter had a place in Ireland, but they didn't have a place like the place in Ireland in England, that's for sure, right? And Elon Musk laid loads of staff off Twitter when he took over it. So it's a foreign company that is providing services and aid for basically things that are to do with English politicians, right? And that actually, because it's equipment from overseas and an overseas force, business, company, it brings in other legislation which is meant to be a bit tighter on the rules for MPs, right? For the fact that Ofcom was saying, it can't be a news programme, it has to be a current affairs programme, right? Or whatever, but that's not the case. It's actually anything that you say or do which could or might influence an election or the election of persons. It actually doesn't have any criteria at all whatsoever for what type of programme it is. It's got nothing to do with what type of programme it is. It's what is said and done and what the influence and effects are in any case scenario. What are the effects of this? What are the effects of that? What is the influence of this? What is the influence of that? And what I went into quite a lot of detail about the dynamics of Mogg even being the privilege of the voter to be on TV. And if you take that away, he's still held up there through the TV channel paying him, right? And then I went into some more dynamics about how that can affect voting in his local area. But he actually got voted out, Mogg, anyway, so it worked against him. But that's the thing, it can work for you or against you, but it's not meant to work. It's not even meant to work at all, because it's not meant to be there. But with this Mogg issue, Ofcom said they couldn't do anything, which is a lie, because they can. Firstly, it was a breach of his privileges, and that means that he hasn't got privileges, so they're allowed to prosecute him in between sessions of Parliament, right? So Ofcom can do something. Maybe they're going on the basis of the Lord Hanningfield trial, right? Which was in complete and total error with Jeremy Johnson KC, right? And, Reese Mogg's only meant to be Sir. In fact, I might even apply for his forfeiture committee application to forfeiture his knighthood. So with Mogg as the example, we'll move on to Rachel Reeves. Hold on a minute. So Rachel Reeves also, she's got a YouTube channel, And she's got all these videos which are very highly pro-Labour. They're like really, really pro-Labour Party. And in fact, not only are they pro-Labour, they're actually opposing the Conservatives, right? And that's for electoral. It's electoral favour for Labour and electoral opposition to the Conservatives and nothing else. Purely on policy for electoral purposes, right? And she's actually been elected now, but now she's still running it. Now, her channel was Rachel Reeves MP, and I complained. I'm like, is this Rachel Reeves MP's channel? That means that it's Member of Parliament. That means it's government, right? Doesn't matter if she's in the cabinet or not. Your job is it's a job. You've got a surgery. You see the public. You're working for the government. It doesn't matter if you're a member of the cabinet or not. It's got nothing to do with the cabinet. Your MP is Member of Parliament, and you get a surgery, and you see clients from the local area. You're working for government, right? And then you speak in Parliament on behalf of people, right? So she's taken MP off. It just says Rachel Reeves now, but on her handle with the A symbol in front of it, it still says Rachel Reeves MP. It is for. She's been using it for government, right? And this is the kind of thing with George Galloway, but he's not George Galloway MP anymore, and also Andrew Bridgen. Well, Andrew Bridgen only really put on his channel when he was MP, he only really put debates from Parliament on there. But this whole Labour Party thing, and Keir Starmer's meant to be a lawyer, he's meant to be worked in this Crown Prosecution Service, but they're doing this thing, what they're doing now. It's what Labour are doing is that they're deeply now immersed in modern culture, and just because you could say that McDonald's are the culture, or Ben and Jerry's, but everyone's not eating the ice cream. But most people now are immersed in this social media just because someone made it and put it there, right? Now, the thing is, with something like, let's think of an example, eating and food, right? You can have, you could be in Robin Hood Prince of Thieves film with, Friar Tuck roasting a chicken at the side of the road, right? And you can eat too much food, right? Anyone could eat too much food. They had barons having feasts on tables, right? Eating, chickens and, pigs with apples in the mouth. And they were eating eels and God knows what. There were people eating too much. Now, it doesn't really matter whether it is a medieval feast or if you're sat in KFC or McDonald's with an iPhone in front of you for free, or if you're in Starbucks, right? If you're immersed in modern culture, it's cool to have like, a tablet in front of you in Starbucks, right? And modern technology, and I'm just on the internet tapping away, and I'm streaming live on YouTube. It's the latest technology, right? I'm eating donuts and, getting coffees, right? Oh, it's the culture. It's a modern culture. You can still eat too much food and it can be too much, right? Or you could still, just go in there and have an apple, right? Just because this tech is there doesn't necessarily mean that you have to use it or you should be using it, right? They had steam trains and they had railway lines, and you could, get on you could get on the Orient Express, right? You don't have to be on the motorway in a state-of-the-art 4x4 to be travelling at great speed and making great progress. You can be travelling and making great progress, right, on a steam train, or you could be travelling and making great progress in the outside lane in a Land Rover 4x4. There's not much difference on it, right? Now, when it comes away from food, and let's go back onto the media, right, right? It doesn't matter whether you've got a telegram machine, 50 telegram machines, or 150 telegram machines. It doesn't matter if you've got a phone box on the corner of a street, or if you've got 500 phone boxes on the corner of 500 streets, or if you've got a newspaper printing press and you're knocking out 10,000 copies of a newspaper, or if you're Rupert Murdoch and you own 20 newspapers knocking out 1 million copies each, right? Now, it doesn't matter if you have got a Facebook channel with 1,000 followers or 60,000 followers or 6 million followers like Russell Brand. And it doesn't matter if you've got a YouTube channel or a Facebook channel or a TikTok or a Twitter with 20 million followers, right? At the end of the day, either they're influencing people or they're not influencing people, right? Now, this is the thing. So it's not really a thing with modern culture, I don't think. I don't think it's about tablets and iPhones and, oh, it's cool to, make a TikTok or whatever, right? Now, here's Rachel Reeves in this photograph that someone put in one of the groups, right? And she's got this photograph with her, with this logo on the front. I don't know if this was actually the real logo she had on there at this time, but it says fixing the foundations, right, in black, like a black bar. So I don't know how to interpret that. You can interpret it a few different ways depending on what you're inclined to interpret it as. You can interpret it as actually repairing the foundations, healing the foundations, which because they've been perverted, or fixing them as in like, this horse race is fixed, rigged, a scam, right? You can interpret it as, fixing the foundations, as, changing them or altering them, right? Now, a lot of these politicians, like Tony Blair, all these Fabians, and Starmer, and Nick Clegg, and Charles, people who want the world to change don't really want the foundations because they want to uproot themselves and fly up into the heavens. They don't want to be fixed and rooted down to the earth, right? They want to fly and disconnect from the earth and just flow off into a dream that is mutable, like what Kamala Harris is saying. The past is gone, forget the past. We're going into forget what has been, now what can be, right? Yet, right, the thing with English law, right, is the English law has a basis and principle behind it for it to work. It's almost like science, physics. For physics to work, you need a reaction, you need chemistry. If you want to cool something down, you put it in the fridge, right, and it freezes, right? And then if you need to warm it up, you hold it near the fire or warm it up, and it gets hot, and then you know where you are, and you have a temperature and a thermometer. Scientists aren't trying to scrap thermometers and ditch the degrees, the measurements. They're not trying to throw away numbers and counting and apparatus, because you use numbers and counting in order to measure things, right? Engage, right? So you know where you are. How many things have you got, right? This is why the government wants surveillance, because they like numbers, they like counting. They don't want to ditch the counting system, right? Now, when you've got juries, it's meant to be so it's fair. And when you've got rules and law and a basic principle, in fact, it was meant to be the world's leading principle of law and justice that we had in this country, right? So, and when you've got Magna Carta and, our ancient customs, which is meant to be the identity of the country, which is something worth protecting enough to have an army. I mean, if we didn't want to defend and protect this country anymore, if there wasn't anything worth protecting or defending, then you'd have thought they would disarm the army. You'd have thought they would disband the army and get the army and just say, oh, we're not even going to have an army or armed forces anymore. What we're going to do is completely cut the spending on the army and completely get rid of it and not even have soldiers or an armed force or anything, because we don't need to protect our borders. We're not going to protect our borders. We're not going to attack any countries. What we're doing is we're actually welcoming everyone into this country, and we're not having a border. Therefore, there's not really anything. There isn't a country, because Tony Blair doesn't want there to be countries. Tony Blair wants it to be just the world, right? Run by BlackRock, and everyone is, trained. Everyone has got staff training, and then Tony Blair trains the world how to conduct itself under policy. And then when it goes home, then you're trained how to behave and conduct through the mobile phone on social media, or you'll get punished, right? And it's pretty simple. There's BlackRock policy for the world, consent, submit, agree, accept, and that's it, right? Everyone behaves because you got one boss, BlackRock, right? And then when you get home, then social media is, you'll behave, or they'll come around to your house and, lock you up, or punish you, or even lock you in your house, and then turn your social media off or whatever, right? We have got a country, and it has got laws, and it's got customs and humans and people. So it is something. And the thing is, there are other people migrating or immigrating to this country, and we are told, welcome these cultures and people and be nice to them, right? That's great. But why wouldn't I be nice to them? I'm not interested, I don't go to their country and mess their country up, or have any tell them what to do with their religions or anything, right? Or, at all. I don't get involved in other people's countries enough to be a problem to them, right? But it seems that with the immigration and the naturalization process, which is a legal process in law, of aliens into this country, where now they don't believe that our customs, and they want different laws, like praying outside places or for people, which is a point in praying, for example, outside abortion clinics. So the point of praying, if you're a Christian, is either if someone's getting married, if someone's dying or dead, or, if there's a wedding or something, right? Or Christmas, at the bare minimum. What's the point in praying is to pray for, spirits or who's dying. So at a stripped down bare minimum, if you can't do something what it's designed and made for, what's the point in doing it? It's almost like saying there's a spoon but don't eat anything with it, right? Or if it's saying there's a car but don't drive anywhere in it. Or, there's a bike but don't ride on it. Or there's a hairdryer but don't dry your hair with it. If you say, here's prayers but don't pray for anyone who's dying, then there's no point in it. It's like having, hairdressing scissors and they say don't cut any hair with it, right? Or, here's a DVD but don't put it in a DVD player, right? So if you tell people not, of all the times when you're going to pray, don't pray when people are dying or dead, right? Particularly if it's, a small child. Unless they're also somehow, you can't pray for young people under a certain age. It's its purpose and design, right? So that's one thing, for example, they're making laws to stop people doing something, what it's actually designed and made for to do, right? And then there's lots of other aspects of it, like the juries and so forth, right? So as for the foundations, I'm not falling for this foundation business, right? Because the thing with this foundation business that Richard Reeves is on about, what I wanted this talk to be about media, really, social media and the influences of media, and particularly politicians using and being on or in media, right? Now, going back to the basic fundamental principles again, and I know this can be kind of complicated, this conversation, it doesn't really need to be. With the effects, right? Things have effects. When you switch a light bulb on, right, it illuminates the room and you can see the walls, right? And when you turn it off, you can't. When the sun comes up, everyone can see all the objects around them. When the sun goes down again, you can't see anything, right? Now, with media, when you show people things, right, they see it or hear it. And the more people you show things to, the more people see it and hear it, miraculously. It's a function, right? Now, they worked out that to be fair and for proper uninfluenced politicians, particularly serving in government, aren't allowed to have certain effects through the mediums of these medias, right? Because it's unfair and it causes detrimental effects to a fair voting system, right? Now, there's nothing you can say or do to change that because it's a calculation. It's not down to anything to do with culture or modern technology. It is down to, it's a mathematical problem. It's not a philosophical problem. It is a cause and effect. It is like knocking dominoes. It fundamentally cause and effect, right? You're not allowed to have cause and effect in that area of influence from these particular bodies because it has a detrimental, unfair effect, right? It's, you know, you can be primitive about it. You know, you can have the recumbent stone circles in Aberdeenshire, or you can have the latest observatory. It's still the same moon, and it's still the same phases. Doesn't matter what tech you've got, right? And this is the thing when it comes to Rachel Reeves and Reese Mogg, right? It doesn't matter if we've got telegrams, if we've got radio sets only in our houses, you know, with the BBC on them or whatever, or if you've got newspapers coming through the letterbox, or if you've got, you know, kids with 8 mobile phones, TikTok, Instagram, or whatever. It's still the same cause and effect, right? The same exact identical fundamental cause and effect and influence, right? Regardless of accommodating for modern social culture and ease of culture. Oh, I'm TikToking. I've got my mobile phone. Like, I'll just knock together. I'll knock a TikTok or whatever. I'll do a TikTok, right? It doesn't matter whether, you know, whether you're sat in McDonald's writing a newspaper story, you send it off to the printers, and then the next day they're knocking out 60,000 newspapers with Boris Johnson's, you know, column in it, right? It's still the effects. What is being publicised, who is being publicised, and what is the influential effect of it on people, right? So it's got nothing to do with modern technology. It's got to do with a calculated causal effect system and rules which are made up for fairness. Because if you don't follow them, someone calculated that this is unfair, right? Just like someone calculated the moon phases in Aberdeen, right, over the top of a stone. It doesn't matter whether it's someone with a computer program or Microsoft tapping the moon phases in from Elon Musk's satellite, right? And it comes up with, you know, every single, you know, degree that you can think of, right? It's still the same moon, and it's still having the same effects on this planet. Doesn't matter if it's modern or primitive, right? Now this, right? This is Wakefield Council on Facebook. Social media, right? This is social media. Modern social media on Facebook. But it's Wakefield Council. That's the place that we pay taxes for and is a government organisation with staff. It's government, right? Wakefield Council is government. They're the government, right? Now here, they're knocking out they're claiming they've got loads of consultations, right, with the public. We'll consult on this. What do you want to name this street? Or, what should, loads of different consultations they're claiming they're doing with the public, right? But they're now here promoting this radio show. And the name of it is, right, it's called The Regeneration Show. Now, I actually made a complaint to this council and I uploaded it to their... I replied to this actually with it, right? Now, this is the thing, right? If you've got a coin and you flick it heads or tails, and that represents the electors' voting or decisions, right? And it can land on heads or tails, right? And one side of the coin says regenerate, and the other side says don't regenerate, right? And that is what the people, the voters, the electors want to do. Shall we regenerate or shall we not regenerate, right? Flip the coin, right? It could land on heads or tails. That means that it could go either way, right? So that's what the council... But the council aren't even meant to offer... The council aren't allowed to affect you in your decision on what should be done, right, at all. Now, here notice they're presenting the Regeneration Show. So it's about regeneration. Have they got a show called the Don't Regenerate Show? No, they haven't, right? It's all about, we're going to regenerate. So they're actually removing one side of the coin, right? So regenerate, to be or not to be, what is the question, right? To regenerate or not to regenerate. They got rid of one side of the coin. So they've removed the let's not regenerate, right? And it's only left with regenerate. And then what they've done with that is fill the rest of the coin up, or even call it a dice if you want. It could be a dice or it could be a coin. It could be like a dice with numbers on, right? And what they're actually doing is, all right, it's all about regenerate show. So how are we going to regenerate it? Roll the dice. So we regenerate it like this, or this, pick a, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, or violet. How should we regenerate it? So immediately they're not only controlling the questions, but controlling the answers, just like what YouTube and Facebook are doing, which is all this big corporate training movement. It's the same strategy, right? They've taken away the options and made new options, which are all what actually, in fact, they've removed, right, your options and then presenting you with options that are actually not the full options. In fact, it's all, we're going to do something whether you like it or not, and now you can decide, have a bit of a say in how it's going to be done. And they're actually pushing this through their website, just like Huddersfield, Kirk Lees did with their blueprint for Huddersfield, right? And that's influencing the public. And it makes the public think that everyone else wants to do it. And when they've got all these signs and adverts everywhere that, it's a blueprint, people aren't even voting on it. And I don't even know how you can have MPs. I don't even know how you can have a political party when all the councillors are signed up for a selflessness policy. If they're selfless, they're only turning up with their electors on each new decision that's on the table. But they're still willing to have... You can't have a strategic development plan. Needs a plan to come from somewhere. And if you've got no self, it's not coming from you. Where's it coming from? Only from investors and developers who've got money and no one else. Well, when they put their plans on the table and when it's voted on, when the electors vote on it, or when the electors tell their councillors to vote on, on a majority or whatever, you can't. Mathematical logic dictates that you can't have a strategy if you're selfless because you don't have anything. There's nothing there. If you're selfless, there is nothing, right? Until your electors come up and say, vote this way or that way, but someone's got to put something on the table, right? But the councillors are selfless. Now, the council really is meant to be like, it's almost like an empty shop. There's nothing there till someone walks in, and says, I've got some bananas, and say, all right, okay, then, right, get some, should we vote on whether we have these bananas or not, yes or no? Then you've got something to vote for, right? If no one brings anything in, there's no there. But the people who are voting, right, the councillors are selfless. So if you've got a lot of councillors sat around the table who are absolutely selfless for themselves, except for the people who voted for them, right? So it's only the numbers of what their electors think on any given subject or matter in the majority on each individual thing, right? But they've got anything to vote for because there's nothing there if they're just sitting in an empty room or an empty shop or whatever, if they're selfless, till someone brings some in. Now, who's going to bring something in is someone who's got a lot of money, like Ronald McDonald, right? Walks through the door. Oh, I want to build a lot of restaurants. Oh, now we've got something to vote for. Selflessly. Let's vote on it. We'll see what evidence you've got, and then we'll see what our voters think, and then we'll vote on it, right? That's how it works. How can there be a strategy or plan? If you've got a room of selfless people, right, who are meant to vote on something based on evidence presented, right, when they walk through the door, put evidence on the table and say, I've put a strong case to have this, right? And then say, okay, we'll vote on it. We'll just go ask our electors. Right, 60% of my electors are for it, so I'll raise my hand because I have no self. It's not my hand. It's my elector's hand. And then the other councillor goes, well, 23% of my constituents are against this, but the rest are for it, so I'll raise my hand up. And then the next councillor says, well, 80% of my electors are against this and 20% for it, so I'm not going to raise my hand, right? None of those councillors who are voting have an opinion themselves. They can't. And they can't be representing any political party's opinion because the political party didn't vote them in. Persons voted them in. And those persons, even if those persons all like Labour, they don't know what's going to walk through the door, right? And even if you've got a package that they all voted for, you can't. If you're voting for, put it this way, right? If Labour have got a package, right, and they say, are you voting for this package, right? Do you want this package? That's a strategy. Then they walk in the council, they put the package on the table, everyone votes on it, we vote for the package, done, clock out and go home, right? Why are councillors, if they've got a strategy, if they've got a package, right, you go in there, you vote for it, that's it, done, package passed. Then the councillors can go home. For 12 months, they've done the vote. That's the package, done, right? The package is voted for. That's a strategy, right? Now, if you want to get 1,000 criminals, right, and say, right, it's Labour, we're tough on crime, that's the package, right? And say, right, they're all convicted. But as a package, then do that. Do a package conviction of criminals. Oh, no, we can't do that. We need to see all the evidence. Right? Because each case has to be put on the table and decided based on evidence with law applied to it, right? So you can't have a package with crime because you need to see every single individual case and matter and vote and decide on it. So there can't be it's impossible for there to be a package because it's case by case. So in the council, they're meant to be voting on things case by case. They're supposed to be. Why pretend? But if they've really got a strategy and a package, then how is that going to work? Because if you want to build like Optimus Prime, that's the package, right? Then you're not going to build Optimus Prime if case by case you say, oh, we'll have the legs, we'll have the abdomen part, and then we'll have 3 ears and an eye, and then we'll vote on whether we should, give him hands or not, and then the next couple of weeks after, we'll vote on whether we want to put some knees on him or not, right? Because then you're not going to get Optimus Prime, are you? So you can't have a case-by-case counsel on different parts of Optimus Prime because it's not going to work, right? So the strategy is, are we going to have the robot or not, right? But that means that a council really is, if it's got a strategy and if it's got a package, then you're not really truly, when you go into the council case by case, you're almost faking it, or it's already really decided. You're not really voting on it. You already kind of, someone decided that we're going to do all this stuff, right? Whether you like it or not. But because we can't really lawfully do that all in one, we'll break the decisions down into separate parts through the year, but we already know that we're going to pass them all, right? Because otherwise we can't do the package, and then it would be like half a package or half a robot or whatever it is, right? So they're living a lie. They're not selfless. They're not deciding each matter on the citizens. They're not acting on the results of consultations. And they're pushing and advertising this whole regeneration things with these modern, or do me a TikTok radio shows aimed at young people, reckoning they're providing, cinemas. They've already got all the cinemas. They've already got all the McDonald's drive-thrus. They've already got B&Q. Everything that they could ever have dreamed of or wanted, they did it. They did everything. They got stadiums, cinemas, showcase cinemas, Odeon cinemas. They got all the drive-thrus, all the supermarkets. There is nothing. There is absolutely nothing that they didn't have. So there's actually nothing that they didn't actually have, right? Put through. And now they've got these radio shows aimed at, targeted psychologically for young teenagers to try and get them behind into this whole regeneration thing. But the council are influencing them and affecting them on it. Now, this is the thing. This, right, is this is entertainment, right? This radio program is actually entertainment, right? Now, I want to show you this. This is the final point now, and it's nearly been 45 minutes. Now, I've been going through the old law and acts of legislation just to get a sense of what things actually are, where they came from, and what is it meant to be. With all the decorations and sparkly, distractions taken off. You can have the most flashiest device, whatever, but it's usually a flat screen. You can have your entire wall with a TV screen. It's still just a TV. Anything. It's something basic and simple, and it's got principle. And the same applies for law, right? Laws, like, just the basic law, like, assault, right? There might have been loads of laws through history based around that, but it comes down to one thing. It's physically hurting one person using their physical body to hurt another person. Doesn't matter what law it's been through England. It's based on a foundational principle. However many acts of law there have been, and whatever that act of law is called, it's assault at the end of the day, right? And it's just a fundamental, simple, basic thing, right? However you want to define it. And this is the thing with all this MPs and the election thing, right? There is a basic principle to it. And it doesn't really matter too much, I don't think, about modern acts of law. I don't think it comes down to, oh, it's Modern Act, how's it worded, how many little changes have they made. It's still there for a reason and purpose. Like the, assault offence is there to stop people getting hit, right? You can have variations in it all the way through history, right? But it's essentially, there's not any need to change it or modify it because it does something, stops people from getting hit and hurt, right, by other persons. It's just simple. And with this election influencing legislation, like we started with Reese Mogg on GB News, right, there's a very basic principle behind it. Now, I found this because I've been interested in reading into rights and privileges, but also about what MPs are not meant to be doing, right? Now, this is a William III Act from 1695, an act for preventing charge and expense in elections of members to serve in Parliament. And it's all about basically like, election cheating and propaganda, which has been happening in the Mayor of London elections, right? In the Mayor of London, there was a lot of the Conservative Party latched on to a lot of the petition campaigns that were for a sole purpose. Those petition campaigns were independent, and they had a lot of followers behind them, and they had a lot of political power behind for a single cause. They weren't party affiliated. And you got the Conservative Party leeching onto them and yoking their strength and power and followers for their mayoral candidates like Susan Hall. And then you got this councillor, Simon Rawthorpe or Simon Hawthorpe or one of the London Borough councillors, right? It might have been Simon Rawthorpe or something, right? He was popping up and helping out, but he is a councillor for a council, right? This is the thing. In my opinion, once you have been elected, then you're a member of the government, right? And you don't get involved in any elections because they've got a party headquarters, they've got staff, right? They might not be as famous anymore as the people, but you get famous when you get elected, right? Unless you've got celebrities running for Parliament, And I hadn't actually seen, a Russell Brand in government yet, or Neil Oliver is not elected yet to government, but they become celebrities once they become politicians afterwards, like Matt Hancock, So, in my opinion, once you've been elected, that's it. You're in the government and you don't have anything to do with the elections, right? And really, conferences are for party members. They're not really. I don't think party conferences are supposed to be broadcast and showed everywhere and aired, because then it's an advertisement for a party, right? And if you're advertising for a party and members of government are appearing in it, right, like Rachel Reeves and the Prime Minister, you can't do that. They need to keep their conferences private just for their own members. It shouldn't really be televised or put all over social media, I don't think. Because you've got government staff engaging in advertisements to influence the outcome of an election. You're not supposed to do that. And I don't think that it should be broadcast. Now, but this is the point of this entire talk and what I wanted to get to. There's a really, it's just literally like a very small part of this, maybe even like a couple of words, but it was just like, it's a word that I haven't seen in the Representation of the People Act. But when I read this, it was like, and it was like a moment of enlightenment, right? And I'll show you where it is. Hold on a minute. I'm not going to read the whole act, but essentially, right, it talks about various different things. It says that no one serving or working in the government is allowed to influence or affect in any way any outcomes of any elections. None of the government staff, none of the government employees, the government itself in its promotions are not allowed to affect the outcome of elections. And it's actually a very, very important rule. And it's actually considered actually disgraceful to do that. And there's also, if you're a candidate and if you're wanting people to vote for you, right, you're not allowed, right, to treat anyone or give anyone anything, which might be buying them drinks, but, you know what I mean, where are they going to get the money from? You know, you're not going to buy off the whole town, because then you just like buy the whole town drinks. But then if you think of rich people who've got a hell of a lot of money, you know, like Donald Trump, he's throwing those hats out, right, or whatever. Or if you think of not Donald Trump, who else, you know, someone like Elon Musk, you know, he just gave £1 million away at a gig the other day that they did for Donald Trump. He just gave £1 million away. Now, Elon Musk is not the candidate, but it was a gig, kind of like sort of pro-Trump gig, right? The thing with Trump, he's actually giving those baseball hats out, and really they are a gift, really, although they've been paid for with campaign money, and it helps, and they advertise and promote the campaign. But the thing with the rosettes is the rosette really is just an advertisement, purely an advert. It's not really a gift as that you can do anything with it, right? But the baseball hats are kind of like a hat, and you can wear it, and it does promote the campaign, but you can wear it like T-shirts. The thing with when you're throwing out all these merchandise is you're really giving gifts to people to vote. Now, if they're already party members and members of the political party, then fair enough, right? But giving gifts to strangers and exchanging for vote, you know, buying them a drink, a pint, it's a treat, right? And there's loads of acts of law about treating people. Even if, like, you know, Susan Hall would have been sat with some ULEZ people and she'd have bought someone a hot dog. Oh, do you want a hot dog, right? And then that person had voted for her, she bought him a hot dog. That's a treat, and that's actually against the rules. But when I am right now, this is where I'm really getting onto this now, and I'm a bit sick of my phone popping up doing that noise as well. It's almost like there's some little elves in my phone popping it up when I'm trying to talk. This here, right? Entertainment. Not just gifts, buying people a pint or a hot dog. Entertainment. Entertaining them. Entertaining people. And getting them to vote for you by entertaining them. Now, I'm not suggesting everyone should be like, you know, Mr. Bean or some kind of like, lifeless robot or whatever. But listen, right? Entertainment. If you provide a person who provides forms of entertainment, right? That's influencing and affecting people, right? That's influencing and affecting people. The class, they understand that entertaining them is really giving them something. It's a gift or an entertainment. And if you vote for them because they've done that, it's against the law. This is as significant as the 1688 Bill of Rights, and this is actually an act of law not that long after that. It says that elections ought to be free, you know. Now the Americans are putting on all these big shows for people in America. They're painting the town red. Donald Trump's putting all these speeches on, or he's meant to be speaking or giving them a message, you know, why you should vote for them, but really, they're putting on entertainment. They're having like Russell Brand. You've got like Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and he's got Russell Brand on the stage with him doing some comedy and things like that, right? Now, I know there's like party funding spend limits and so forth, but it's meant to be like just an informing them about policy and getting them to spread the message and the word, advertisement, right? When you start getting into entertainment, But the thing is, this is literally, I mean, this is literally the main point, though, my final point. Ofcom, right? So Ofcom, who I think are useless, and the Department of Culture, Media, Sport Select Committee as well are useless, right? This is the thing. They say, oh, it can't be a news programme, right? Because it might go into politics. Doesn't matter what kind of programme it is. There is no kind of programme. It don't fucking exist. No fucking genre of fucking programme exists in fucking law for Ofcom. It's a figment. It is, what is the influence and effect of the things that these people are saying on voters? Does it affect the outcome of their voting or not? That is it. There is no fucking genre. It does not fucking exist, right? Now, they're claiming, oh, Mogg can't do news programmes, but he can do current affairs or talk shows or whatever. What is a talk show? It's a fucking entertainment programme, right? He's entertaining you, and he's getting paid money for it. Like fucking Graham Norton. Graham Norton's not a news programme. Is it actually? It's entertainment. And not only that, it's trying to make out that it's not political. But he's a politician. Oh, who shall I get entertained? Who do you want to entertain you? Graham Norton? Or, maybe Michael Barrymore? Or I know, the politician. The politician